Our agenda today is to discuss why we need well-written SOPs. We're going to talk about writing SOPs and using the SOP templates. And we're going to talk a little bit about globally readable documents. What we're trying to accomplish today is we want to review the approaches to creating readable and usable SOPs without compromising the compliance, which is why we're writing them in the first place. We're going to consider SOP template as a tool for achieving readability, improving and achieving readability and usability, and then discuss global documents. We're not going to discuss about how to define process flows, identify processes, etc. That's something that's from a different, a separate session. So why do SOPs, well-written SOPs, really matter? Because a lot of times when I write SOPs for a living, and when I say to people I write SOPs, they roll their eyes and say, "Oh, I hate them." But the well-written SOPs actually do matter. I don't just do it for a living. I like doing that, believe it or not. They are instructions. Most people don't like reading instructions, but the better they're written, the more likely they have to follow them. And if the instructions are really written, reading instructions will not be the last resort when everything else fails. Also, SOPs provide a plan for how things are done. In certain places, you don't really need a plan. It's just a list of steps. But clinical world, pharmaceutical development world are areas where you do need a game plan. It's a bunch of people. It's an orchestra. It's a team that's working together. SOPs provide a plan for everyone, and it gives you directions on what to do. Let's review a little bit about the lifespan, the life cycle of the SOPs. First, we create them, then we implement them, use them. Periodically or on an ad hoc basis, there is a review, and based on the review, they're either updated and put back into use. They may not be updated and just put back into continue in use, or they may be retired. What we need to think about is, why do we have noncompliance? I mean, if the SOP is written, shouldn't people follow it? However, there is noncompliance always raising its ugly head. So let's see where things can go wrong. We start out with whether they were created correctly. Were they complete? Did they have the correct process? Did they actually cover the whole process? And were they readable? A lot of times when I read a warning letter or an audit report, especially warning letters, for example, that the FDA writes for manufacturing, they don't do as much on the clinical end, but in manufacturing, a lot of times they say people don't follow the SOPs. And my first reaction is, did anyone actually read those SOPs before they put them into effect? The next part is, how were they implemented? I don't particularly like the concept of read and understand. Yes, it's applicable, but it's not. In most cases, it's not the right way to implement SOPs. Read, understand, and sign can be done when you're talking about general information or minor updates. When it's something complex, implementation should be more than just read, understand, and sign. And also, have you considered the timing of it? If you don't implement it at the right time, if people read the SOP and don't use it for a year, chances are they're not going to remember that it even exists. The other part is that when SOP is written, some people think that once you write an SOP, that's the end of it. But an SOP is not end-all. It's not a manual. It's not everything. You may need tools to follow that SOP, to help you use it, that SOP, to follow it. And again, both SOPs and tools are usable. The next part where things can go questionably is during the review or revision process. A lot of times the review is rushed, especially if you have SOPs written in batches. Everyone just signs off on it. But did anyone actually read the SOPs? And also, the people who are driving the writing and reading and reviewing of the SOPs, are they actually doing it properly? I worked for a client where my job was to represent the functional area on the SOP review committee. And after a couple of these meetings, the head of the group that was leading this called me aside and told me that biannual reviews are not the time to suggest changes. The SOPs were written fine, they were approved. So they shouldn't need a lot of changes on a biannual basis. Honestly, I was really shocked. I didn't know what to say. If the SOPs were perfect, then yes. But a global statement that you don't change the SOPs once written is just kind of out of there. It's allegory.